So, welcome back. I got Evan with Real Frequency here today, and he's going to drop some real knowledge and
That's right.
secrets and all sorts of entertaining life hacks for us today. So, happy to have him on the Unconventional Money Moves podcast. Evan said he is pumped to be here and end the week with us. Evan, what do you got going on this week? What do you in terms of your business and everything? What have you been working on?
No, thanks, Joshua. This is an honor. Appreciate you reaching out, and I'm glad to connect. This is a great way to end the week, really, on a real positive note. We do a lot of positive things throughout the week, and we work really, really hard. So this is a nice feather in the cap to end it all before we head off into the weekend. Man, we got a lot going on here, brother. We are, first and foremost, we're here to serve people, and do right by them, do good by them, and provide them with a great product. Because we believe that that's at the tenet of good business practice, and it's critical that everyone on board here works their tails off to be sure that at the core of our mission, there's always good. And so long as we stick with that, people are served and they're being provided for. We're provided for, and it's how I sleep at night.
It's a good way to sleep. And for someone who's not familiar with Real Frequency, what sort of good are y'all doing in the community? I know it's a lot, but just like real
Sure.
simple.
Yeah. Well, simply put, we're a launch agency. All right. We can talk about roots and where I came from. That sometimes is boring, but the crux of what we do is like a sports agency or a talent agency. We have a stable of horses, our employees, myself, my business partner, and a myriad of others that assist clients with any type of life leap that they're about to come into. I'll tell you the tenet of how this started was at the college consulting base. I was really into education. I'm an adjunct professor as we speak. It's something that I really want to do, and it's my way of giving back and connecting with that generation that is so critical to our future as we ride off into the sunset. Judging by your looks, Joshua, I think I'm much older than you, but maybe you just got some crazy secret. I'm using my face cream as well. I always do every day, but nonetheless, I got a good 20 years in me before I'd like to hang it up and enjoy life. And those that I'm teaching in class at the moment are going to be running the show. And as I got into education after my graduate degree and working through my doctorate, I realized that in the schools that I was teaching, in the colleges that I was interacting with, and an administrator and a professor, these kids would come in there without knowing where they came from, knowing why they're there, or where they were going. And I took it upon myself to really try to connect with them, because that's what I do. I mean, my undergraduate's in behavioral science, and my master's is in education, and my doctorate's in education leadership, and that just speaks to my strengths. That's what propels me. That's what gets me up in the morning, gets me fired up, dude. I just need to connect. It's like me and you, dude. I was so excited just to meet you. I've listened to your podcast, and I just want to hear your story too. So I did that with students and thought I was making an impact, but then they disappear, gone.
So you're serving high school kids, middle school kids, elementary school kids, all the above?
Yeah, no, when it comes down to it, I knew that there needed to be more done on the front end of these young students' education and path, right? So we primarily serve high school students in their life lead to college, all right? Or, college isn't for everybody, but some type of education after high school is necessary. We have gap year programs. We work on graduate degrees. We work with career professionals in their transition to their next life leap, their next chapter, whatever you want to call it. We're there for you to serve. We're very honored to be a part of the Honor Foundation, which works with military veterans, specifically special forces, as they transition from active duty to civilian life. I mean, that's when it gets real. I think this is a PG podcast, so I mean, the stuff gets real. And a lot of what we do with the Honor Foundation and these servicemen and women that literally put their lives on the line and lost brothers on the battlefield right in front of them are some of the same processes and procedures that we actually implement with our high school students as they transition to their next steps. And it's been wildly successful. And the only way we can measure that is if they make it or not, right? Like, how are you going to measure that? Well, is there engagement? Is there success, persistence, and completion? Other than anything outside of that, it's a fail. It's a fail in our eyes. And it's our responsibility as we send these young people down the line is we're with them the whole way because our success is predicated on their success. We can get into the facets of it, which the financial part, which is
like what kind of kids are you helping? Are these like low income, high income, middle kids, all over the board? Like what do these high school students look like that you're helping teach the skills that they're not being taught in school or maybe not being taught at the home to help take them from their current circumstance into a circumstance that they may not even think is achievable based on where they're currently at?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked that because the process for which we put our clients through is the same whether you're high income or low income, middle income, whether you're a first generation college goer or you have your parents have an amazing pedigree with some pretty legit degrees backing them. The fact of the matter is that everybody needs this, and this generation alone particularly is at high risk, regardless of how much money you have.
Is this Generation Z?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And all generations for that matter, largely because of three things. Right? We had the COVID. And it stunted a lot of people's growth, maturity, understanding of how society works, particularly with this generation when it was such a critical, pivotal time in the brains and developing and how to operate, how to engage. Like what? Like this was extremely damaging. Now we're starting to see the ripple effects of that, and some inadequacies there. Then there's social media. There's access to information. I'm not saying the internet's evil, man. I mean, we use it. We thrive on it. We're nationwide, right? We have clients all over the country. I have employees all over the country. I have to use social media to connect, or I have to use technology. So I don't want to knock it, but the things that these young people are exposed to, and the way that their minds are trained or untrained, is damaging. I mean, the numbers say it all, right? The third aspect of this is pressure on all sides, whether it's to perform, whether it's to get into the right school, whether it's to make themselves look as amazing as possible so they can be accepted into the institution of their dreams, right? And that stuff makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up because I know what's happening there. And they're setting themselves up for failure, and they're setting themselves up for an emotional turmoil, and they're certainly setting their parents up for some financial loss there. So ultimately what we do is work on several things, right? Mindset, it's really big and critical, particularly with this generation. I think it's somewhere upwards to just under 30% of first-year college students in 2020, 2021. This is, prior to COVID, had failed out, dropped out, or transferred. That's 750,000 human beings. And we can get into the cost of what transfer is, or what the cost of withdrawing or failing out is. But I promise you, it is not money you're ever going to get back. And it is not a wise business decision to invest in something that is such high risk. So our job is to mitigate that risk as soon as possible. So if we get a lot of sophomores, we get a lot of juniors. Um, we'll take seniors. It's not too late, but it's a lot of work. And I have a problem with saying no when someone's begging us to take them because they found themselves in a particular situation they weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
sad for me.
Yeah. And I mean, a little bit of background, like, how did you, was there probably wasn't a single event, but like, what's a short story that you could share that caused you to take action to start this cause and start this
Mm,
organization?
mm. I spent a lot of time in high school counseling offices, and
Mhm.
honest to God, these men and women that are working in these offices are like, more power to you, because it is a tough job. And I saw the chaos. I saw that what they
I don't know why people would want to do that job unless it's just like they're, you
a
know,
masochist.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't pay well, and it's obviously they're overworked, underappreciated, and underpaid. So I mean, either it's your passion and you're going to do it regardless of what the circumstances are, or you know, you know, people are just going to burn out. So I mean, like, what's happening inside
Yeah,
those
yeah.
meetings? That
Dude, and that's just it. Like, they deserve twice the pay, half the stress, and there should be more to support the student bodies in which they're thrust into and have to work with on a daily basis. So what we do doesn't supplant what a high school counselor does, or a college and career counselor at the high school does. We support. And it's important to understand that. So the short story is, I'm in here, I'm telling them what we do, and they're like, oh, no, we don't need that. We've got it. And then we see low matriculation rate, meaning students aren't going to college, or they're finding themselves in the wrong fit, at the wrong time, at the wrong price, and end up coming home early. And then we think, you did. I know you want to own it. That's why they're there. They generally get in there because they want to help people, or they had their own experiences with their own kiddos, and they think, oh yeah, I'd love to be a college counselor. I did it really well with my kids. Let's do it with families with all types of intricacies, nuance, issues, dysfunction, like, and then they realize, wow, there's a lot here. We're just treading water here just to make sure the numbers fit, and they get out of here alive and graduated, right? So we're there to jump in. We work with a lot of athletes too. I mean,
Mhm.
athletes is a lot of is what the core of what we do too. Sport isn't our main focus, but I tell you, it's a great conduit to the program that we run, as far as mindset, strengths assessments that we do and walk them through, and then recruiting. And I'm not saying getting recruited by the best and the brightest and the most notable. I'm saying get recruited by a team in which you're going to fit within the culture first.
Mhm.
Don't count wins. Like, if you're on the bench and you hate your coach and it's a bad fit and you get hurt and you're not going to play again, and you look around, you're like, how do I find myself here at the school? I'm going to transfer. All of a sudden, scholarship's gone, and then we've got a huge cost and time and emotional turmoil that you have to deal with after the fact. Now, let's get that right before they go. Let's get that right. Let's get all the boxes checked. And I think we're going to talk about some of those boxes today.
Yeah. So help me understand, like, what are these? What's happening with these kids? Like you mentioned, like COVID, obviously not being in school, affected a lot of kids in terms of probably their educational growth, because when you're 8 years old versus a 9-year old, the difference is huge versus if you're 29 versus a 30-year old, the difference is much smaller because when you're younger in age, uh, you have these kids that could be, 18 years old and they're a senior in high school and they're competing against kids that are like 17 years old.
Yeah,
That 1 year age gap when you're younger is a huge difference.
monumental.
So how did
Monumental.
that, is that what you found in the COVID in terms of like development with people and these
Yeah,
students?
it is. Well, what we found in COVID is that those that played at a high level or use sport as, um, their feeder for acceptance, or belief in themselves, or a perpetuator of success, is that they got burned out, they quit, or they didn't come back when sports started up again. Then we found those kids were directionless, or at least unfulfilled. They had a void within them, which then perpetuates to anxiety, depression, right? 60% of college students reported that in the last 2 weeks they've had some sort of mental illness or depression or anxiety. And those are the kids we're talking about that were COVID and housebound during those critical years. Like, you can't tell me there's not a connection there. On top of that, within sports, there's tremendous pressure to perform at a high level in front of coaches and recruiters and parents. And that, add that to a weak mindset and the inability to process what's going on, and not having the tools to center yourself, to have the appropriate self-talk and self-awareness and understanding of what your strengths are. It crushes kids, man. It's devastating. Dude, in 100 years, there's going to be some mathematical, algorithmic professional looking back and being like, what in the heck were they doing with that whole sport thing? Wow, they screwed up those kids. Wow, those kids were wildly unprepared for what was coming their way. And hopefully in 100 years, they have it figured out. Our mission is to help as many people as we can, so we can get there a lot sooner, like now.
So, what were you doing before all this? What were you doing before you decided to, I don't want to say take a leap of faith, or if you're in the, if you ever seen the movie The Blues Brothers, you're on a mission from God.
Oh, dude. Yeah, no, I was, I could tell you all the way back, but I was military.
Okay, so you're in the what branch of military were you in?
I was Air Force, and this is how intuitive my father was at the time. He says, "You're not ready for college. We're not going to set our money on fire and send you to college. You crazy?" I mean, how I was in high school, and my attention, or where my focus was, or being kind of pigeonholed into a very traditional learning environment. That's not how I operate. That's not how I succeed. Well, I acted out, and I'd get into trouble. And lo and behold, I probably would have done that at the college level and been a statistic in 1997, right? So he was smart enough. He's like, all right, you're out of the house when you graduate. Like, you can't live here. You're going to make it on your own. You're going to either go to the military, or you're going to make it work. He was prior military. He was an officer in the military. He was like, well, I guess that's the best option for me. And I hated it. I pushed back. Of course I hated it. I loved what I was doing for the country. There's that aspect of it that I was really proud to serve. But ultimately what it was me really having to look in and being super uncomfortable, something that I had resisted for a long time. And, it broke me, which is actually what I needed.
So do you mean you looked at yourself and you're like, I don't like who I am?
Yeah. I'm not capable. I don't belong here. There are much better human beings doing this than I am. Why am I the one on the wing of an F-16, F-15, B-1, KC-135 working? Like, I don't deserve this. And it was tough to come to that conclusion. I had to find it in a very difficult way. The military is not a great place to find yourself in, because you got to follow the rules, man. And if you ask my business partner or my wife or my parents, for that matter, thank goodness they're still here and they're very involved in my life, and some of the most loving and caring human beings, thank goodness. They tell you that I do things differently, right? We are unconventional. And which is when I read the title of your podcast, I was like, oh, Josh and I are going to be old friends real fast.
I love it.
Yeah. So after that, dude, I got out and I was like, I need educated. I understand that. And, in that 3.5, 4 years, you mature a whole heck of a lot. Not only that, but I was on the hook for it, dude. I had to pay for it. Military helps out, of course, Doesn't take care of it all. And then I had to live. So I did some soul searching. I called my aunt, who's a professor at Plymouth State. She was a psychology professor. And I was like, God, I'm in this business classes and I'm not a math dude. I'm scared. She's like, Evan, why are you not in behavioral science? Why are you not studying sociology and psychology? Like, that's all you, dude. So I switched my major and never looked back. I loved it. I love the connection to psychology and the help that it can provide, regardless of if you're a psychologist or a therapist, they're doing what I'm doing now. Fast forward a few years, met my beautiful wife, got into grad school and at Boston
How'd you
University.
meet your wife?
I was in a gap job trying to save up money for grad school, selling exotic cars in Encinitas, California on the 101.
She came in to buy a car from you?
Yeah. And
And you're like, oh, I gotta lock this girl down. She's buying a nice car.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that. And she was there with a guy too, and I thought it was her husband, but she made it very clear the next day when she came in for a test drive that he was not her husband. So it ended up she didn't buy the car, but she got me. So there were times, though, I promise she wished she had bought the car and not this one. But ultimately, in the end, she's my rock, dude. She's one of the most incredible human beings on the face of the planet, and so lucky to have by chance met her there, and it worked out. But yeah, ultimately got into grad school at BU, and it was right about the time when we met. I was like, I'm moving back to the East Coast. Like, I'm in California right now. I gotta work on this, and brought her back, and she's like, I don't want to live in the East Coast. What's that?
Boston University, BU?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm from Connecticut, so I'm gonna just preface that. So that was kind of home. Well, she didn't like New England, and unless you're from there, you know how it is.
Cold. The cold weather.
The people are interesting. I'll keep it at that. I grew up there, I mean, I'm
People
one of them.
are a little angrier Northeast.
A little bit. And that's very familial. So if I were to inject her within that, I'd have been fine. But who knows? She's a fun-loving woman. I'm sure she would have been fine, but it's not the most welcoming environment, I think, for a newcomer to break into that. So ultimately, we decided to make it official. I deferred for a year, and said, she's from Spokane, Washington, and we'd gone and met mom and dad, and I checked out the area. I was like, this is pretty cool. Not only that, they have one of the best universities on the face of the planet. A little bias here, but Gonzaga, and which also mirrored the master's degree program that I was so wanting to go to at BU, and it's better for me. It's a better fit, better environment. I was supported. I was loved. That Jesuit institution, I'm a Zag for life, man. It is something else. And enrolled and got my master's degree. Had our first kiddo, and off to the races. I knew there was a pivotal person in my life at the time. His name Dr. Chris Fry, and comes second year in your master's degree, I'm full time. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. A lot of my fellow classmates were looking at the private industry. They were looking at the public industry. Some were looking at education. Some were looking at it's in sport and athletic administration is my degree. Some were looking at working for the NBA or the Major League Baseball league, whatever it may be. Chris pulled me aside. He's like, Evan, I like you, man. You're great in class. What are you going to do? I'm like, I have no idea, dude.
Who's Chris?
Chris Fry was one of my professors in class.
Okay.
And he just kind of knew that he had this sixth sense that I was lost too. And we had a long conversation. He was like, you need to be in education, dude. You need to help people. You're impactful. And that was the first time. I mean, I'd heard it before, but it was the first time that he pointed me out without me having to ask or fish for compliments. That said, you can make a real difference, dude, and I believe it's going to provide for you.
So that was like one of your turning moments that helped helped you dig out of your,
Mhm.
I don't want to say like depression, but it sounds like you were in a
Oh,
little bit of a dark place.
I was. We can go into that too. I'm an open book. It's part of my journey, and particularly with the owner of this business, is we're clear, direct, and honest. And if I'm not clear and direct and honest about my history and my path, what brought me here, then I'm doing people a disservice. But I can tell you very much so, I was drinking a lot in grad school, and it didn't serve me well, nor did it serve my family and my wife. And it did. It brought me to turmoil. It's probably why I couldn't think so clear. And I'm sober for a long time now, anyway, and but it took a while to get there and figure it out. A lot of work, a lot of tears, a lot of blood, sweat, and
A lot of
uh,
beers, a lot of tears.
a lot of there's a lot of tears, yeah, and all that's behind me, right? Um, and I use that. I wouldn't trade it for anything because it really has molded and sculpted me. I wouldn't have been able to understand myself enough to really believe and love myself enough to believe and love others. Like you have to. That's how it works. So divine intervention, or whatever you want to say. I mean, some people say everything happens for a reason. Uh, Perhaps that's true in my case. I don't know. I just know that I love what I do. We're really good at what we do. We
Mhm.
love serving people, and people are happy.
Yeah. I mean, from my experience, there are things happen for a reason, but it could be for one of two reasons. It could be for positive reasons. It could be for negative reasons. So if you're going down the wrong path, things are going to happen to you and they're going to keep negatively happening to you. If
Yeah.
you're going down the wrong path and you're gonna be like, why is this happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? So, well, you're going down the wrong path. Versus when you start going down the other path, things are going to happen probably a little bit slower than you want. However, you're not going to have those setbacks, or if you do have a setback, you're going to rebound faster than if you're going down the wrong path. Is that
Absolutely.
kind of what
Absolutely.
happened to you?
Absolutely. No, man, dude, the world is like a mirror. Be careful what you do, because if you smile at it, it will smile at you. Now,
Yeah.
that's also very true in reverse. You frown at it, you putting bad stuff out in the universe, of course you're going to attract that. That's where we tackle, I mean, that's really hard for young people to understand too. It's hard enough for adults to understand. You see it all the time. There's a chaos and the dysfunction online, on social media.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of it's fake, a lot of it's drummed up, and it's there to get eyeballs and create conversation and angst, because that's what keeps them coming. We get that, right? It is what it is. Can't stop that, but we can be prepared and understand it. And so long as the earlier we as human beings can grasp this, the better off we're going to be, the more prepared we are going to be, the more tools we will have to combat this when it does come in our life. Like, again, we're not anti anything. Like, stuff that's out of our control, I don't even want to think about. Like, what a waste of time. Let's talk about what we can control. We can work on our bodies. We can work on our craft. And one thing that many young people and adults don't work on is their mind.
Mm.
So we are fully comprehensive in that, understanding that when people come to us, wherever they are in their journey, regardless of how strong they are, that mindset needs to be honed and worked on and continued to be strengthened. And that's what we call prehab. Prehab, not rehab. Getting ready for what's coming your way, whether you're expecting it or not, and being strong, being prepared.
Mm-hmm. So how did you come up with the concept, other than, like, I know you wanted to do good for people and to help people, uh, you know, not have to struggle like you did, and to be able
Mhm.
to help them navigate through the challenges of from childhood to adulthood, which due to social media seems to happen a little bit quicker nowadays, probably. I'm not in the field like you, but that would be my guess, is just kids see a lot of things that they normally wouldn't see at
Yeah,
all.
well,
Even as a
yeah,
human, 100 years ago, they wouldn't even see these things. Now they're seeing them at such a young age, and it could be detrimental to their growth.
it is. It is. There's a moment in time, and remember the story I told you about these kids disappearing that I was working with at the college level when I'm teaching, right? I got into administration because my dean was like, dude, just much like Chris Fry at Gonzaga, when he's like, you got to make an impact, a bigger impact. My dean saw that too. Love her. Shout out to Dr. Cassie Silvas. She's like, you're on the dean track, dude. Like, we got to get you there. And so, yeah, I went to the dark side. I was an administrator, and and I felt like I could make a difference there. And I grew our department with my partner, Marcy Hoggett. She's one of my favorite people on the face planet too. And we kept butting up against bureaucracy and red tape and budgetary constraints, even though that we were crushing it. And again, not just monetarily, fiscally, but like with the numbers. And it just became a battle. I became less apt to do what I'm good at and more apt at trying to fight and struggle to keep with what we had. And that's no way to operate. It's no way to live. My wife and I often go down to San Diego for, Jana Evan trip to get away from life a little bit and recharge. 6 years ago, I went down and with the idea that I needed a change, and it was going to be big. And if you ask anybody that knows me, I don't do anything halfway. I'm 100 miles an hour or dead. I'm all in, or I'm not in at all.
0 or 100.
0, 100, baby.
There's no 0 to 100. Either I'm near none or I'm all in.
You will not mince words when describing how I operate, which can be good. It could also be bad because you don't want to be checked out either. When it comes to my life's work, there's nothing stopping us, dude. And it started and has not stopped with the inertia of 5 days in San Diego on the beach writing my business plan, literally with my thumbs and notes on my phone. It's still there. And I didn't know how much I wrote. I just sat there, meditated, breathed. And my wife was so great about, like letting me do my thing. And I just wrote and dumped and absolutely just everything on this poor notepad, right? Thumbs were sore at the end of the 5 days. Lo and behold, I get home and I copy it all and I put it in a Microsoft doc. It was 40 pages. 40 pages of ideas, of thoughts, of desires, of needs, of vision, mission, of ethos. And I reread it. I was crying. I think it's hard for people to write things and for them to get emotional about their own writing, but I know where it was coming from. And half the time, dude, I didn't even know what I was writing. I was just like, oh, okay. We'd be out at dinner and I'm like, I'm so sorry, honey. I got something to my head.
You're just an auto drive.
Yeah, really. It's what we call flow, right? Whereas before, if you're prohibited or restricted from feeling flow, then you got a bad wolf, which is flow backwards. That's really absorbing your energy, your thought process, and your engagement into positivity. And I was in flow, man. It was like Shangri-La. It was where we met. It was sunny. It was beautiful. I was on the beach. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. I had a beautiful wife, kids. Like, we're doing okay. Now, how can Evan totally throw a wrench in everything that he has and put everything at risk by leaving a pretty dang good job with great benefits to start a business making nothing?
And this is at the university.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
This is when I was
you're at the university. You're in California. Your thumbs are moving faster than Donald Trump when he was tweeting all the time as president. And then you're like,
that's a lot.
I'm quitting my job, and I'm gonna go do this thing, and I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. The first thing I had to do was sell this to my biggest investor and emotional support system, which is my wife. And before, oh man, it was funny. She's not anything like I am, right? I'm the crazy wild. She's the slow and steady, very conservative in ways of how she operates. Doesn't, not bringing politics into this, don't get me wrong, but she's methodical and thoughtful. I get a feeling, I make decisions based on this and this. So if you're not watching a video, I'm putting it in my heart or my gut. She makes decisions with this, the brain. Together we're a powerhouse, but honestly, like I had to sell her on it, dude. And so I went and got a business license. I mocked up what is, you'll see our logo as it is today, almost. I had, I'm not a business degree. I don't have a business degree, but I did as best I could with the business plan. Much of it came from that 40-page dossier that I wrote on the beach. Put it in a binder, made it all official, got the sleeves and everything, and made it look great. I even put a quote in there my dad supplied me because I kind of let him in on this, what I was about to do, and make sure that I wasn't crazy. And we went to one of our favorite restaurants, Mizuna in Spokane, sat down, and I like literally had to go to the bathroom and splash water on my face. I was so nervous.
With your what? Just with your wife?
Yeah. I believed in this so much. And I knew that this would be something I would throw my soul into. And I knew I had to have her on board. And at this point, dude, we'd been through so much. I mean, like what relationship and marriage hasn't at that point, right? Over 10 years at that point, and still together, still really supportive and loving, and know each other better than we've ever known each other before. But at the same time, I was like, God, if she doesn't like go for this, like I have to acquiesce, and I have to go back to college and continue to be on the dean track and quite potentially be miserable. So there was, a lot going on up here, and stomach turning stuff. And I sat down, took about 45 minutes. She didn't say a word. No questions. I think she's
just stone cold stare into your soul.
Yes, my soul, and then the books, and picking it up and reading it, and got her little reading glasses on, and she looked at me. She's like, "Do it, do it, and
do it,
do it." And
starts in Hutch style. Just do it.
Just do it. I almost started crying, man. Like I'm tearing up right now. It's super emotional because from that day on, she has not questioned what I do, how I do it, and how we serve the people in which we do, because she believes in it too. And honestly, I couldn't do it without her. That's all I needed from her, and that's what she gives me on a daily basis. So at that point, I gave my institution 9 months notice because they replaced me, and I didn't want it to be a secret. Like, they can either fire me because I'm leaving, or I can continue my job and they can find a replacement, and they were appreciative of that. So
did you work the whole 9 months after that?
it was about 6.
I was gonna say, I felt like you can last another 9 months.
No, yeah, it was I mean, I am a man. It's one thing I learned in the military is like, finish what you started, and respect people, and don't leave people hanging. And so I did. I loved my administration. They were fantastic. Yes, we had our issues, and it's always turmoil. But it doesn't mean I needed to, screw them over. And so I thought I did right by giving them enough time. And at the same time, I was like, hey, listen, I'm also building a business on the side. So, I'm going to give everything I can here, but just know, like, this is going on. There won't be any conflict of interest or anything of that nature. And there wasn't. But I just want people to know, clear, direct, and honest. It always serves you well.
So you got permission to proceed from the lawmaker, also known as your wife. You put in your notice. You're going to start this business. How did you find your first opportunity?
My first client.
Yeah, first dollar. You might go to somewhere and they have the first dollar in a frame.
Yeah, I wish I did. Money's all electronic now, so maybe I can print out a little receipt. But it was more.
No, make it an NFT or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. That was, as Mahatma Gandhi has a quote. It's one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, my business partner had it printed for me for Christmas. But when you start a business, or really with a lot of things in relationships or life, there's always this systematic approach and what you're going to experience through this endeavor. That is, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And I can't tell you how spot on that is.
Ignore,
First they ignore,
laugh,
then they laugh, then they
fight.
fight. My camera, you got it? Sorry, here I am
We're all
moving my
good.
fingers and the camera went out. Yeah, and then you win. And that's how the sequence really played out for me time and time again. And what it did for me, knowing that it solidified that I knew I was on the right path, right? So they ignore you. No one knows you exist. I'm trying to scream this thing from the mountaintops. Real frequency. What are we? What do we do? Like, what's real frequency? Is that a radio company? Like,
And this was 6-7 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're like 2017.
Yeah, right. And then when they find out, particularly some of my colleagues, that when I told them what I was doing and leaving, colleagues that had, were pining for the position I was in, it was like, what, dude? Really? Why would you leave this? Like, and to do that? Like, oh, no. Like, Then as soon as the laughter subsides and you start making waves and you start having actual clients that you have an impact, which one of my first clients was actually in Seattle. A dear friend of mine had a niece that needed some assistance. And I was like, bring her on, let's do this. And she was fantastic. And I poured my heart and soul into that because she was the only one I needed to worry about. And lo and behold, it went pretty dang well. And then we got a referral. And then from that referral, we got 2. And from those 2, we got 2 more. And we, meaning me at the time. And it blossomed into me managing this tiny little consulting agency by myself. And it wasn't until the following year that I realized, like, A, no one's laughing at me anymore. I'm fighting some battles for my clients. So that's good. I must be winning. I must be. That's the only next step. Let's get some people on board. So one of my first employees kind of fell from the sky and like called me out of the blue and was like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I love what you do. I've heard some great things. Can I come and help? I was like, yes, please. And man, she was impactful, really helpful with my journey and building the ideology of what we do. That's really important, right? Like the system stuff that comes. That's pretty programmatic, but the ideology and the spirit of what we do is a really hard thing to get across and for people to embody. Because once they do, we know that they'll be far more successful than if they didn't have it. And then I said, we're at capacity. We need another person. I don't want to turn business away. I can't turn people away. That's not who I am. That's not why I started this. So we have now our director of consultants who found us. I found her. It's all blurry now, but Bryn Hand, she's fantastic. She's our director. She's Washington State licensed teacher. She was a tutor. She's been through it all. She's been to pre-med school. She's incredible. She's got her own story too. It's awesome. After that, we hired a lot of interns from Gonzaga. That's really important to us, that we're connecting and paying them and they're making money, but they're also really valuable to us because they have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on out there. About a year and a half ago, I met my business partner, and it was now turned into one of my best friends. We love each other like brothers, dude. And that's kind of how it has to be because it ain't easy. But Chad Clay, one of the greatest guys on the face of the planet too, was a coach of one of my sons who played lacrosse. Chad went to Notre Dame, played lacrosse there, and has steep connections within the sport. But I always liked his style. He's just so even keeled and doesn't demand respect, but man, he got it from these like middle school, young kids, high school students. Like, it's like, I don't know how you do it, dude. Because like, you're not like making them respect you, but gosh, they do. And he's very like direct. God, I've hugged him before. He is a hugger, but like, I mean, he's not going to melt in your arms. Like he's a rigid guy. I'm sure he's going to hear this and probably punch me in the shoulder. But
That's
I was
okay.
like, God,
You'll hug him afterwards.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I will. I'm a hugger. I love hugs. So he really, dude, he came to me. He was like, your program is phenomenal. How are you serving athletes? How are you serving athletes? Because as a coach, athletes would come up to him and be like, I want to go play at UNC, Notre Dame, Johns Hopkins, because I'm a lacrosse player and that's where we go. How do I get there? And Chad, being a coach, very knowledgeable within the lacrosse realm, is not knowledgeable within the college acceptance or the recruiting realm. He's like, dude, what if we combine my expertise and your expertise? And we have this really well-rounded program where not only are we working with recruiting and shaping these young people to be successful wherever they go on the playing field and off, but we're like helping teams. We're helping teams offer these services to their players so that the coaches can be relinquished from this responsibility and do what they do best. We do what we do best. And it's a comprehensive experience for mom, dad, coach, and something that not every club offers. It's like, that's a pretty good idea. And we're like, let's do it. It took me like 2 seconds to say yes. Drew up a contract, with some revenue share stuff. But it became really clear to me very, very soon after the ink dried on that initial contract is he needed to be an owner. I needed to sell him part of my vision, part of my soul. He needed to own it. And he was really great about it, man. He was like, listen, I've owned companies before. That's not important. Numbers are numbers, whatever. I was like, but it's important to me. My attorney, some of my very close friends who are very successful entrepreneurs were like, dude, take the deal that you've got. Like, don't give up your IP. Don't give up your any of your shares. So no, it's important. It's important. He because I believe he believes too. And yeah.
Well, the important thing to remember, because you're a creative thinker, and most people aren't creative. Most people are trained to be left brain because that's how kids are brought up. Pass this test, move on to the next test, pass that test, move on to the next test. However, it's better to own 10% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. So by identifying partners that can bring a different dynamic to the table, it's like Michael Jordan before he's got Scottie Pippen, before he got Steve Kerr, before he got all these people to help him. Michael Jordan was great, but the team sucked. And then he realized being a team player, this game's a lot easier. So exactly. You got to bring on the right people to your team in order to win championship after championship after championship and let it be sustainable. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to burn out.
Otherwise, you'll burn out. And I think where entrepreneurs fall flat is they believe they need to manage and hold on to and own all of it. And part of this in me having him buy 39% of the company was that I was like, I can't own it. I don't want to own it. And frankly, I shouldn't. I'd be negligent if I kept some of the operations that are necessary to make this thing hum, because that's not where I belong here, bro. And he's like, oh, that's funny because that is actually where I belong. And that's where I shine. His strength statement is wonderful. He sets picks so others can score. He's a big basketball guy too. And that's what he does for me daily. He's working his buns off right now so I can talk to you.
Yeah, you just got to do what you do. Nothing more, nothing less. Just do what you do.
Now there's something to be said about it. I'm glad you said that, Joshua, because how do you define that? You can know, you kind of feel, but often, whether it be career professionals or young people going to college, they can't define it. They think they know. And then they get to an employment, an employer, or a college, and it's not aligning. And they're finally like, oh, I'm not able to do me. I'm not able to just focus on what strength. This institution, these employers are not magnifying our strengths. Matter of fact, some of my weaknesses are coming out and I'm not real stoked about it. I'm going to change. I got to make a change. Fight or flight kicks in and they're out, regardless of the fallout financially, emotionally. it's problematic, which is why we do what we do.
For sure. Now, if I was a parent or I had a kid, are you all just in one area? Are y'all nationwide? Like, where can people find Real Frequency to explore these possibilities to help their kids do better than what they
Yeah.
could do on their own?
No, for sure. Realfrequency.com. And there's a contact button. You reach out. You'll most likely talk to me because that's what I love doing. So I refuse to give that up. Yeah, we could have someone answer the phones and answer emails and meet with people, but ultimately I'm like, no. I love that. I see them on my calendar every day, and I'm like, oh, sweet, I get to meet a new family and just share, right? So they can go to realfrequency.com. I think your real frequency is our handle on Instagram. Our social media is really changing. So is our website. Like as we grow and morph, I'm not. Let's just say I'm not one to sit still either. I'm diagnosed ADD. I know it very well and I leverage it, and everybody knows it, which is why you see so much change. And well, by the way, a lot of our clients are also diagnosed ADD, and they gravitate towards us because we're like, oh no, that's not a disability. As a matter of fact, it's going to be your superpower, and you're gonna crush it. Particularly with this day and age and what's happening with the mind, and how kids are distracted. Like, don't even need to be diagnosed ADD to really further yourself or understand it, so you can focus, make good decisions. But yeah, realfrequency.com, get on there, contact us, reach out to me. I know we're butting up against the hour, but there are some financial things that you probably want to ask me, like how would we financially be unconventional and save people money? I don't know. I just love where this is going, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're doing it all, and with everything that Real Frequency is doing, becoming your basically you birthed another child out of your brain, your brainchild per se with Real Frequency.
I've never heard of
I'm
it
sure
that way.
we
I don't know
could.
what that looks like, but yes, I like that.
I'm sure there's many things that you're helping kids out with whether it's financially and things like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh
but
yeah.
we're gonna leave it. Well, let's leave it on a little cliffhanger. So the people who are listening to this, or they find this, and they want to learn more, reach out to Evan, and then he'll be able to share some of his secret sauce with you
Yeah.
on a one-to-one. So
That's
thanks for
wonderful.
being on,
I love
Evan.
it.
I enjoyed it, and I want to learn more about Real Frequency when we hop off here. So thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, everybody.